What happened at a wedding that let you know it would end in a divorce? Story 1. The groom invited his female friend. She was in the early stages of pregnancy. Towards the end of the night, the bride asked the aforementioned friend who the father was. The friend cheerfully said the groom's name. Opinion: I have a feeling that marriage didn't last long. Story 2. My uncle got red-faced and screamed at 14-year-old me on his wedding day to make sure I wear condoms, so I don't have to marry some witch I knocked up. Edit. This was 30 years ago when having children out of wedlock still carried a stigma. I'm sure my grandfather told my uncle to do the right thing and marry her. My mother, who is older than my uncle, got kicked out of the house at 18 for being pregnant with me, and I am sure that influenced my uncle's decision. Opinion: well, at least he showed concern for your future. There is nothing like this sound of experience. Story 3. A friend got married. On his honeymoon, his wife went to the spa. He stayed in the room to chill. Housekeeping came. Young, cute girl. Friend paid her for some oral activity he told me about. All proud. Didn't last a year. Opinion: I can't understand how that would even cross someone's mind as a possibility. Story 4. The bride, whom I didn't even know, apparently designated me to help decorate the reception hall prior to the wedding. I went to do so, and her mother was there, telling me in a hushed, scared whisper that I better not mess anything up because the bride would be furious. Everything was to be a certain way, and if it was wrong, there would be repercussions. I gave her the benefit of the doubt, chalked it up to wedding anxiety, and during the reception, I tried to chat with her a bit, and she literally rolled her eyes at me. I also didn't see her look at the groom once. At the wedding or the reception, they were split less than a year later. The groom confided to me and my husband that the morning of the wedding he had been filled with an overwhelming feeling of dread and spent several hours just sitting on his lawn, thinking, I shouldn't do this, but it was paid for. Tons of guests were waiting. Lots of families, including us, had come in from out of state, and he felt he had to go through with it. Apparently, the bride had a history of being awful and controlling. No clue what made him propose to her in the first place. Edit. Just stalked the ex-bride. Her latest status update is announcing her wedding date with a new guy. Someone jokingly asked in the comments if they had set a date for the divorce. Oh snap. Opinion: that's a perfect example of the sunk cost fallacy. The money spent is already lost. And if you think a wedding is pricey, just wait until you see the costs of a divorce. Story 5. Her vows. They were friends of mine who dated for nearly 2 years before their wedding. He loved her more than she loved him, obvious to all our friends, and we suspected she begrudgingly said yes to his proposal. He said his vows first and went on and on about loving her for the rest of his life. During hers, she started with 438 days. That's how long I've loved you. It seemed sweet until she ended her vows with, and I promise to love you for at least 438 more. Most thought nothing of it, and some friends called me a-hole for saying it was a subconscious sign she wasn't in it for the long haul. She left him exactly that amount of days after the wedding with a note that said, I kept my vow to love you for 438 days more, but I can't for a single day more. Called it Opinion. If she went to such a dramatic, almost theatrical length, it suggests she might not be very grounded. People like that often view themselves as a main character in their own story, seeing others as more supporting roles and using them as props for their personal gain. Story 6. A bunch of my family members are betting on how long one of my cousin's marriages would last. It's definitely going to end in divorce, but we just don't know when. Here's all that happened pre-wedding. The couple can't even agree on the invitation card designs, so they decided each would have their own. Some people received two invitations. Wedding. They're both from different races, and the groom's family insisted on having a wedding ceremony from their culture too. The bride refused the part where she had to kneel before her husband and wash his feet clean. The groom's family insisted and she was stuck doing it. The bride got tired of all the photo taking and refused to pose for any more photographs, even though she hadn't taken photos with the groom's extended family. Meanwhile, she had already taken photos with her entire family, extended family, and parents' friends. The groom's cousin told the bride she walked inelegantly, and she spent hours crying and refusing to come out for the wedding dinner. Half the groom's family boycotted the wedding over the bride's race and religion. Post-wedding, the bride insisted they should fly first class for their honeymoon. The groom insisted it was a waste of money, even though they both come from money. The bride flew first class. The groom stuck with the economy. Opinion. I think that except for the first and last ones, the rest seem more like family issues rather than problems within the couple themselves. Story 7. Our friend was the girl who had spent a whole year setting up for the great day. They had taken 6 months of dancing lessons and she has spent a ridiculous amount of time looking good and dressing up her bridesmaids for the wedding, of which my wife was one. So come the night of the wedding, the groom meets up with his old friends and starts to get blackout drunk. He got so drunk he didn't even recognize us, rather just pushing us aside to get to the bathroom. The worst part was the dance itself. It was really heartbreaking to see them stumble around and watch the panic on her face as she realized he had no idea what was going on. I gave it 6 months at the time, but they ended up 3 years. She ended up marrying another woman. Opinion. Well, I just hope her new wife is a better dancer. Story 8. I thought my sister's wedding was. Her husband got blackout drunk and they got into an argument. He passed out and she ended up throwing a bucket of ice water in his face to snap him out of it. Happy ending. He made it up to her big time. Also, he felt very out of it, even the next day. Turns out he had traces of rohypnol in his system. His own brother roofied him in hopes he wouldn't marry my sister because he wanted their own friendship to remain the same. My brother-in-law has disowned most of his family because of this, and his brother just got out of a 4-year prison sentence. Opinion. This actually gives me hope. It's an example of a couple getting over an obstacle together and coming out stronger together. Story 9. I have two, at what I've dubbed the worst wedding ever. The bride and groom were an hour late, argued with everyone at the wedding, ran out of food at the reception, and made the groom's mom cry by yelling at her. When the bride cried through the entire ceremony, it clicked in my head that she wasn't just roommates with the guy she lived with, not the groom. They were an actual couple. She married the groom because her mom wanted her to do so. A year later, she was making up this story about the husband being a control freak, like that crummy Julia Roberts movie where she runs away from the freaky husband. Meanwhile, the guy was just nice and quiet and didn't do anything that she said he did. Opinion. Some parents believe they're securing their child's future by encouraging them to marry someone they consider more suitable, often someone with greater financial stability. But that doesn't justify her making up lies about her husband. She could have simply asked for a divorce. Story 10. Not all of it was at the wedding, but on our way to our honeymoon, we were on a flight with this couple sitting behind us. She boarded the plane with a giant carry on and a garment bag with her dress in it. Once they found their seats, she shoved her bags at him to put away, and then went to use the lavatory for about 15 minutes. She was really nasty towards him the whole time. Fast forward to running into them at the resort. She was super stuck up and witchy to every female and all of the staff. She didn't seem to have a problem grinding on 4 or 5 different guys during one of the dance nights, themed events, while her husband drank alone at the bar. Finally, the day of their wedding came and my husband ran into the groom sitting alone outside at the cafe with a drink in his hand. He sat down to chat with him and the guy explained that he was freaking out because they had no friends or family at the wedding, because literally no one that knew him liked her or approved of the wedding, and that he wasn't even sure what he was doing there. My husband tells him he's sure it's cold feet and to just have a drink to calm his nerves. The groom replies that this is his 5th drink. It's like 11 a.m. already. We had an oceanfront villa and they got married right outside our back door. He looked like he was going to bolt for sure. I guess that was her plan the whole time. Trap him on a remote island. Opinion. I'm pretty straightforward with people, especially strangers. If someone is asking for advice, they're usually looking for the truth. After all, it's just a stranger. So who cares if feelings get hurt? I do wonder if telling him to just leave would have pushed him to actually bail. Sometimes people just need a little push. Story 11. My cousin got his casual hookup pregnant, and somehow they came to the conclusion that they needed to get married. Instead of going and getting quietly married, they decided they needed a gigantic expensive wedding, like a 5-course meal, 300 plus guests, 12 bridesmaids kind of wedding. Obviously, something like this takes a while to plan, and as a result, she was about 7 months pregnant. Now, nothing wrong with going down the aisle while expecting, but she chose this corseted dress that was cinched so tight it nearly flattened her bump out. As someone who has been pregnant, I can't imagine how uncomfortable that must have been. The fact that they had only known each other for 8 months and she was 7 months pregnant was like the elephant in the room the entire wedding. She refused to acknowledge the fact that she was pregnant. She had been out of college for 10 plus years and invited all of her sorority sisters. They got up and all sang this weird sorority song together. Very odd for an over 30 woman. I'm probably not explaining it very well, but it was like she was trying to act like she was much younger. They were married for about 4 years, way longer than anyone thought it would last. Opinion. The singing is just too much. And I wonder if the baby is okay. I mean, does it get squished or just shifted around? Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and activate the bell button to receive notifications to my latest videos.